In this video, we are celebrating the biggest win of my comic book collecting career, over a $10,000 payday for very little work involved, followed by yet another frustrating inconsistency with CGC's grading standards. It's almost like, here's a big win for you, and at the same time, a little punch in the nuts. But we'll go over all the details here. But the reason I'm phrasing it as my collecting career and not my comic book dealer career is that literally anybody watching this can do the same thing. And many people watching this have done the same thing to much greater success and extent than I have. What I'm talking about is comic book CPR, where you crack a book out, have it regraded, and go for valuable grade increases. And I can just hear it now. Some people in the comments saying, oh, maybe for you, bro, like I'm never going to be able to take a risk like that, or I'll never be able to afford that. I just want to encourage you to say that, yes, you can. Who put these limiting factors into your head? Who put these thoughts onto you that you're just suppressed and not able? Listen, there's opportunity everywhere and you can do it. And that's the beauty of YouTube. That's the beauty of this hobby. That's the beauty of watching this video for free, is you get valuable information for free that you can turn into realized gains in your financial life. And the only thing that would hold you back, if you're saying, I can't do that, I could never do that, is you thinking that you could never do that. If you think you never could, you're correct. As a man thinks, so is he. And if you think and have a limited fixed mindset, that's going to be your reality. And if you have a growth mindset, an unlimited mindset, then the sky's the limit on things like this. And I digress a little bit there. One of the only caveats to this YouTube channel being free is you gotta listen to me promote my website. Check out brycecomics.com. We got a Hulk 1 entry-level 0.5 available for trade, some early FF keys, tons of new key issue comics, the most coveted comics in the hobby, listed almost daily at brycecomics.com. So if you're not signed up for that newsletter, make sure you do it this week. This month, we're giving away some valuable Wolverine slabs valued at over $300, I believe, just for being signed up for the newsletter at brycecomics.com. And we also have a giveaway here on the YouTube channel, a set of 1 in 500 Hunt for Wolverine #1 Adam Kuber's. I'm giving 2 copies so you can display them side by side because it's a wraparound cover. All you have to do is subscribe, comment, and like. And follow me over on Whatnot. We got some exciting Whatnot shows coming soon for slabs and raw books and everything in between. So the first book, the biggest win of my collecting career, I cracked out and submitted a giant size X-Men #1 in a 9.6, and I think you can see where this is going. And it came back a CGC 9.8. 9.8 giant size X-Men #1. Let's hop over to GP Analysis and take a look at the price difference. Wow, look at that, a signed copy. I don't think I've ever seen a signed 9.8 sell, and look at those prices for the signed 9.8s. Anyways, a 9.8, the last sale was low for $18,000. We'll get into that here in just a sec. The last sale of a 9.6 was high at $12,000. So I paid, I think I paid around somewhere between $8,000 and $9,000 for it. I think I did 80% based off of 10,500. And as you can see, I mean, like most of the sales in here are around that $9,000 mark. And if you were to look at an average, 10,000 is taking into account that 12. I mean, if I were to list a 9.6 today, it would probably be 9,200, maybe 10,000 and try, but I just think 10,000 would be a little bit high. And then for the 9.8, the last sale being 18,200, I think there was 2 things against it on that one. One, it was off-white to white pages. Page quality is a big deal for giant size X-Men #1. If people are going to spend this kind of money, they want it to be white pages. And the other thing going against it is it was at my comic shop, which tends to be a little bit on the lower side. I mean, naturally, my comic shop auctions are going to get less eyes than something like Heritage. Of course, they'll charge you less of a fee, so it might come out as a wash in the end. The sale before that was $23,750, and that was also an off-white to white pages. That was a strong sale for an off-white to white. The sale before that was $21,300, and I believe that was a white page copy. And the sale before that was $22,800, which I believe was off-white to white. Off-white to white. So, you know, and then the sale before that was 25,000 back in September. So even just in September of this year, a 9/8 white sold for $25,000. So I think a fair price in today's market is 23,000 for a 9.8 with white pages. And that's what I'm going to list it at. It may or may not be available by the time that this video drops. I'm not sure when this video is going to drop and when this is going to post, but if it's available, it's over at brycecomics.com. And this was one that, you know, I struggled with a little bit. I thought, like, you know, should I shoot some money back to the person that I bought the 9.6 from? I mean, that's where my head goes. I even thought about not doing this video. I mean, if I were the one that had sold it, I would hate to see this video. Although that has happened to me many times. I have sold books and I see posts on Instagram, shout out to Bryce Comics, I got the bump, you know? So it's just par for the course. And, you know, it was a big risk to crack a 9.6. If something could have happened to it in the mail, if it got damaged in the mail and it comes back a 9.0 or worse, or, you know, you just get unlucky with the grading, it comes back a 9.4. And in that case, it's not like I'm going to go back to the original seller and say, hey, I cracked this out and it came back a 9.0. Can you shoot me some more money? So that doesn't make sense. So it's really just, it just is what it is. You know, I bought the book at a fair price. I took the risk and it just happened to pay off. And it's followed by a book that it didn't pay off. And if you go back just 2 videos ago or whatever, it was where I got absolutely rinsed by CGC and almost none of them paid off. So, you know, it's in the end of the day, when you crack a book, that's your risk, that's your investment, and that's where it ends. So, but I did think about it, and there's just too much to talk about and too much valuable information here to not do this video. So one of the things I want to put up on the screen is the improvements that my buddy Ron over at Palm Beach Presser did to this book. I mean, it's just magnitudes better. And as you can see on the screen, all of those defects that he fixed were non-color breaking. And that's what was so intriguing about this book and what made me decide to do it. And I will say that over the years, you know, I have probably sold close to 100, maybe over 100 copies of Giant Size X-Men #1. And I don't think I've ever got a big bump, you know, but I'm always looking. And it seems like the 92, 94, 96, there's a lot of common, you know, defect type stuff that you're seeing on the screen for Giant Size X-Men #1. It's a square bound book. And oftentimes those are non-color breaking. And then other times, you know, if a little fold on the corner, one of the things about this book is it's notorious to have an overhang. That's where the cover is just slightly bigger than the interior pages and it hangs over. Those can very easily bend, and that can very easily become color breaking. But my point is you should really pay attention to 9.2, 9.4s, and 9.6s of Giant Size X-Men #1 as a potential opportunity to get that 9.8, because it seems like the 9.8 has a more generous scope of allowable defects in a 9.8 for this particular book because it's square bound and because there's so many of them. You know, it's not really a rare book. I mean, it's relatively rare in 9.8, but as far as like copies out there, you know, there's enough to choose from and in the market where you should be looking. And that might account for why there's such a big swing on these prices here for the 9.6. Maybe this 9.6 that sold, the person was like relatively sure he can get a bump to a 9.8. If this was a 9.6 that he saw a clear path to getting a bump to a 9.8, then 12,000 was a great deal, you know, and so that's probably why there's such big swings here on these. Every once in a while, you'll see one that sells for way more. And I want to talk about this particular copy. So it does appear like it's like slightly askew in the slab. It's just ever so slight, but this book is not moving at all. And the reason for that is the little plastic piece here in the interior of the case holding the book in place. And that's what you want with this book, because you do not want a Giant Size X-Men #1 9.8 or any grade for that matter with any kind of overhang, and they almost all have something moving around in the inner well, because if it, even under normal shipping conditions, if it hits the edge and it bends over, if that becomes color breaking, now you have a problem where you have a 9.8 with a color breaking thing, but it's a 9.8. So, you know, all that to say, I'm not thrilled that it's slightly askew in the slab, but I'm very happy that there's no movement whatsoever. And I'll save my comments on that for a future video on a future day. These cases are drastically inadequate for these books. I cannot believe that CGC puts, that Superman 1 that's at auction, the 9.0, a multi-million-dollar book in a 50-cent, if I'm being generous, piece of plastic from China. Are you kidding me? Like, there's no better option for these Grail books than these cheap-ass plastic. But the inner well is the biggest problem. It's not the outer case, it's the inner well. They need to figure something out to keep those books immobilized. All right, let's talk about the fail. So the fail is this book in the exact same submission, Incredible Hulk 181 in a 4.5. This was a 5.0. And unfortunately, I don't have better pictures of the before. I just have this random picture that I took before I sent it to Ron. And he sent me one picture, and I'll put that up on the screen, of the stain. So this book has a big stain on the back. It's like the full length of the book. And I knew that going in, but it had obviously not been pressed or cleaned, and it had severe rippling. I mean, this book was like warped badly because it had not been pressed or cleaned. And you can kind of see with this picture on the screen, like what I'm talking about, but the whole side had like a big wave all the way up the spine, and he fixed all of that. And obviously the stain is still there, and it came back a half point lower. It was a 5.0, now it's a 4.5. It looks so much better than it did before. He took out so much waviness and non-color breaking. It's ridiculous how much better this book is than when it was a 5, and now it's a 4.5. Just is what it is. That one guy, that one day, I almost think, if I had better pictures, I would send an email to CGC and say, hey, how is this less? How is this graded less? Like, you guys need to take another look at this, and at the very least, stand by your grade of 5.0, because I made it look way better, and it deserves, I was hoping for like a 6.0, 6.5, nothing crazy, but I mean, without the stain, if it didn't have the stain, I mean, this book is like a 9.0 or so. So, it's a really cool opportunity to get a 4.5 that looks like a 9.0 from the front. So that one was kind of frustrating. And, stains are one of those defects that is going to be very subjective. It happened with that Mad 1 that I had recently, where it was a 7.5, improved the heck out of it, came back a 7.0 because there was some stain that I didn't know about. And I decided to just sell that one. It's like, you know what, I'm not going to, the only thing that would be worse than getting this back lower is to try again and get it back the same grade. So I just cut my losses with CPR, but not always. So one time I resubmitted a book 5 times before I finally got the 9.8, and then it was worth it after it. So I just don't have the stomach for it these days. So the big takeaway that I have for this video is pay attention to CPR. Don't jump off a cliff yet and take this big risk and put all this money into it right off the bat. Start low, start slow, learn, make some mistakes, learn from those mistakes, come back, get better. But before you do anything, before you even try CPR, just watch a bunch of videos. There is so much information out there on YouTube for free from this community of people putting valuable time and energy into these free videos that lay out the groundwork of how to do this and what to look for. And my channel is one of them. I have tons of helpful videos about, successes that I've had, failures that I've had, and everything in between. So keep it on your radar. It's worth it, especially if you can get a big win like this that covers a lot of losses, because now you're in the green and you feel better to take more risks, and you'll win some and you'll lose some. But, as long as in the end, you're getting more and more ahead, that's the name of the game. And I will say too that as far as collecting goes, a big part of me wants to just keep this. It's like, paying over $20,000 for a Giant Size X-Men #1 9.8 is a big investment. It's a lot of money, right? But when you pay half that and get the 9.8, it just feels so much easier to own. You know, it's like, you know what you're into it and you have this instant equity, and that's what makes CPR so fulfilling in this hobby and why you should be paying attention to it. And if you're not crazy about the book that you CPR'd, use that money for something that you do love, or take your wife out to dinner. Better yet, take your wife on vacation and let her know that Giant Size X-Men #1 is what paid for that vacation, and watch her loosen up on her thoughts on your spending of comic book collecting. Huh? You see where I'm going with this, fellas? Anyways, thank you so much for sticking with me to the end of the video. Don't forget those 2 giveaways. Check out BryceComics.com. Love ya. Bye.